I don't know if you can hear, but there are protesters outside right now honking their horns and raising signs. We did speak to a few of them before we came in, and these are regular people who are not getting a paycheck. Some of them are not getting their unemployment check. And they're saying that they don't have time to wait for all of this testing, and they need to get back to work in order to feed their families. Their savings is running out. They don't have another week. They're not getting answers. So their point is the cure can't be worse than the illness itself.
Yeah.
What is your response to them?
The illness is death. What is worse than death?
Well, what if somebody commits suicide because they can't pay their bills?
Yeah, but the illness is maybe my death as opposed to your death. You said, they said, the cure is worse than the illness. The illness is death. How can the cure be worse than the illness if the illness is potential death?
But what if the economy failing
worse than death
equals death? Because of mental illness, the people stuck at home.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't equal death. Economic hardship, yes, very bad, not death. Emotional stress from being locked in a house, very bad, not death. Domestic violence on the increase, very bad, not death. And not death of someone else. See, that's what we have to factor into this equation. Yeah, it's your life, do whatever you want. But you're now responsible for my life. You have a responsibility to me. It's not just about you. You have a responsibility to me, right? We started here saying it's not about me, it's about we. Get your head around the we concept. So it's not all about you. It's about me too. It's about we. Also, I get the economic hardship. Everybody gets it. Everybody feels it. Federal government is sending out a check for individuals, $600, an additional $1,200. We are moving heaven and earth to get the unemployment payments going. So we get the economic anxiety. The question is, how do you respond to it? And do you respond to it in a way that jeopardizes public health and possibly causes more people to die? And think about it as if it was your family that might get infected, right? And that's what we're talking about. And when you think about it as your family, you have a different perspective. I'll tell you the truth. It's not an abstract argument. Well, they say, he says, she says. He says, she says. I know that's how it works. Well, the protesters say this. Governor says this. Protesters say this. Governor says this. Okay, think about it as your family might be in the mix. Because when I see 484 New Yorkers die, I feel that it's like people in my family. And nothing comes before the public health risk of somebody else's life. And that's where we are.
This is New York Governor Andrew Cuomo with exactly zero patience for these stay-at-home protesters. And I should add, before we go any further, that these people represent a tiny, tiny fraction of the population. They are neither a majority of Democrats or Republicans. In fact, the newest poll shows that only 14% of respondents believe that America should ease social distancing restrictions to restart the economy, while a staggering 76% said Americans should continue social distancing for as long as necessary. And the media is partially to blame here, considering their desperation to give them oxygen actually legitimizes them. Despite the fact that some of these protests have barely enough people to fill a Wendy's parking lot, and yet they're getting national media coverage. But the fact is, if those people are so desperate to be out in public, or liberated, as Trump says, then they should probably get jobs bagging groceries or delivering food because no one is stopping them. As for Cuomo's explanation that we need to be thinking relative to the worst outcome, in that people are dying, suddenly it makes a lot of sense. The fact is that more than 45,000 Americans have tragically died from this virus, and there will undoubtedly be more, and that is what we're trying to avoid. Everything else will be hard, absolutely. Paying rent will be hard, and buying food will be hard, and covering bills will be hard, and nothing is going to change that. But we need to think of what's happening relative to people dying, because that isn't some theoretical outcome, it is reality. And we are already at the point where many of us personally or know someone else who's lost someone to the virus. And that's why neither I nor most people in this country have any sympathy for the protesters. Because again, we get it. We live here too. We're all experiencing the same hardship as everyone else. But as more and more Americans die from this disease, I'm sorry, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to feel bad for people who are growing impatient when there are other people who are losing friends and family members and neighbors and coworkers. And so our priority should be ensuring that we don't lose anyone else. Not opening the country back up, not juicing the stock market, not pouring onto the beaches, but sucking it up and staying at home so the virus stops spreading and no more Americans have to needlessly die. And the thing is, what those protesters are doing is self-defeating. These people are protesting against measures literally put in place so that we can get back to work. It's these people who refuse to stay at home and therefore spread the virus who are prolonging the very stay-at-home orders that they themselves are railing against. So if they're upset that these measures are being put in place for such a long time, they have themselves to blame, since they're the ones who can't manage to stay at home long enough for the virus to stop spreading. And just another point on that, this isn't just about stopping needless deaths, although that should be enough. It's about flattening the curve so that the number of cases doesn't overwhelm our healthcare system. Because if we listen to this small minority of people, who, by the way, are clearly taking cues from Trump, and reopen the country, we risk not only more Americans dying, but the collapse of our healthcare system. And if you think the economic hardship is bad now, wait until the healthcare system fails. The simple fact is that until this is under control, until the spread is contained, and also until people feel safe, the economy isn't going to return to normal anyway. So no, we're not just gonna flip a switch, and we're certainly not gonna be able to take any shortcuts. The solution here is doing our part and staying inside and not holding rallies, because ultimately, all that's doing is hurting the rest of us.